Okay, so in this video I'd like to talk about creating a very simple ring mod effect, and implementing it in mix.c, or in this case, mixring.c. First I would like to talk about what a ring mod is. Next, I would like to introduce the example code that I used to build one. Then I'd like to give an overview of mixring, including a very short discussion of paramcommon.h, and the example from the lines module that helped me to set up the bool type. Finally, I'd like to end with a short demo of the ring mod effect as I implemented it. Like last time with mixfade, I began by searching for a site with a description of a ring mod. I knew what a ring mod sounded like, but unlike a crossfader, I wasn't really sure what the effect actually was. I found a very helpful explanation, and I will try to remember to link this site in the video description. Basically, ring mod is an amplitude modulation effect that occurs when two signals are multiplied, typically one sine wave or another type of simple waveform and a carrier wave. That definition helped me to visualize the effect and how it works. But, unlike the crossfader example, I guess it wasn't really that easy for me to conceptualize how I needed to implement it in code. In these cases, I usually find it helpful to look online for example code that involves the same effect I want to create, and use it as a guide to create the code for my project. The sample code I found this time comes from the awesome Ardcore project by Darwin Grosse, and Darwin included a really easy to understand ring mod effect in here. In the loop function, we have output equals input A times input B. In addition to being very easy to understand, there is also a direct connection to the page I found with the definition of what a ring mod is, and how it works, i.e. multiplying two signals. So I actually used this code to build my ring mod effect for aleph. Next, I would like to introduce the project files for mixring. The first thing that I want to do is bring up params.h. My original idea was actually to build a fader that I could use to crossfade between the waves, but I haven't quite been able to figure it out yet, so my other idea was to build in a way to toggle the effect on and off with a switch. Basically, when the switch is on, you can plug in two inputs to get a ring mod type effect. When it's off, you will just get the default mix.c type mixing effect. So, I added ring switch into params.h. Then, I added ring switch to params.c. But, I needed to do something a bit different this time with parameter type. For the crossfader, I could use eparam type fix, and I was able to just recycle one of the CV values. There wasn't really too much involved because, other than the label, nothing really needed to be changed. This time, because I wanted a switch and only needed on and off instead of a wider range of values, I wanted to use bool type. The problem was that the original mix.c params.c file did not include an example of the Boolean data type. So I used a two-step process to get it set up for mixring. The first step was to review paramcommon.h, because this file actually contains all of the existing common parameter data types. We have Boolean, we have fix, we have amp, we have integrator, and there are short comments for each one. Based on this information, I knew that I needed Boolean and what it was called in this case, but I wasn't sure how to set up a bool type in param.c. The next thing I did was look for an example of how to set up a param type bool. I left a comment for myself in param.c. But basically I looked at the lines module. Param.c for lines has an example of the eparam type bool. In this case, run write 0 is actually an eparam type bool, and it gives the syntax for setting up the param type bool, so this was very helpful. Because I am still not that familiar with the aleph code, having a working example of the syntax was really helpful in setting up my parameter, and also gave me a better idea about the role of min and max and radix, and how they work. Next, I would like to bring up mixring.c. Like mixfader, I just copied mix.c and renamed it to make mixring. I added ring switch here. And I also added fader value which is not being used right now. I also created input A and input B because that is how the Ardcore code was set up, and I thought a direct tie-in to the example code might be helpful for testing and troubleshooting. I also set my parameters. And I zeroed out input A and input B. I actually set up two implementations, with the first one being the crummiest version. For this one, I just used ADC val, which we talked about with mix fade, and I sent input A times input B to final out. Like mix fade, we're dealing with a blackfin intrinsic, but last time we were using add and subtract, and this time we're using multiply to achieve the desired effect. With the crummiest version, just plugging in two inputs will give you sort of a ring mod-like output. And it's okay, but I wanted something with more control. So I created the second implementation with the switch toggle function. The second implementation makes use of ring switch and a conditional to turn the ring mod on and off. Also, the ADC val routing is a bit different. If ring switch is on, input A is multiplied by ADC value 2, and input B is multiplied by ADC value 3. I noticed that when the ring mod is on, output is quieter, so if I route everything through the same ADC vals regardless of whether the effect is on or off, there will be a noticeable decrease in loudness when turning ring switch on, and a noticeable increase in loudness when turning it back off. So, to mitigate this, I used a different set of ADC values, and adjusted them to make the difference between on and off less noticeable. When the ring mod is off, final out will consist of input A and input B being mixed, and it will just be the normal mixer effect from the original mix.c. In terms of output routing, I have only passed final out to out 0, and I've zeroed out all of the other outs. We could send final out to each output if we wanted to, I just didn't do that this time. Also, we want to add our parameters to the switch case statement. I have ring switch, which is the actual switch to turn the ring mod effect on and off, and fader value, which is not used right now. Okay, I guess the next thing I would like to do is give a very short demo of how mix ring works on aleph. I will demonstrate with a couple of different waveforms, and also try a spoken word sample, which I really like because it reminds me of the make noise demo for mod to mix. Thank you for listening.
beds of sengreen and clumps of moss. In the open fields, under the shadow of high ricks, he would lie, listening to the hollow splashing of the mills and inhaling the fresh breeze from the sea. Sometimes I despair. Swept hillsides of magnificent flowers. There, below to one side, as far as the eye could reach, lay the Sun Valley. With the sky. High up, near the horizon, on the other side, rose the churches and tower of Provence, which seemed to tremble in the golden dust of the air. Immersed in solitude, you would dream who would fall to the night. A protected little person of some thoughts, his night is sad, his load undeveloped ideas become firm. After each vacation, he returned to his masters all reflective and headstrong. This changes the art to scope them, setting an observant, accustomed